This is Keith Stellman from the National Weather Service. We are going to start the briefing today on the flooding. It's a pretty long briefing, so just bear with us because there's quite a bit to talk about, not only just today, but going into the rest of the week. So go ahead and hit the main points, and I can't stress this enough. There is a significant flash flood threat tonight. It's developing now and will continue through the evening hours tonight. Bottom line is we have a frontal boundary that will be stalling out across the region. We're going to see some very heavy rainfall with some higher rainfall rates. Given what we saw last week and what we're expecting, we can expect things to escalate pretty quickly. This is going to evolve into a nighttime event. And with that, obviously, the dangers of nighttime flash flooding will be there for sure across the northern part of the state. The main impacts, again, the significant flash flood threat with widespread river flooding as well that will result from that in the days that follow. On the left-hand side here, this is for the remainder of the week. The flood threat will continue into Wednesday. We actually have a severe threat coming in Wednesday night into Thursday, and that will also bring additional rainfall. And then again, more rain coming in on Saturday through Monday, which we'll talk about towards the end of this briefing. But we're going to focus a lot on the front end, which is the threat that's developing today into tonight. So there is a flash flood watch. We had a flood watch out. We've actually converted it to a flash flood watch because of the risk for flash flooding and how significant that threat is tonight. That is in effect through Tuesday evening. Between the antecedent conditions and the additional rainfall, this is going to be a significant flood threat. Again, I can't say it enough. You're going to hear that several times through this briefing. Just to drag this in, I'm going to drag in the current radar. You can kind of see the rainfall that's developing now and some of the higher rainfall rates and the convection, the storms that are firing over Alabama, Mississippi. That's going to work its way in along the I-20 corridor through the remainder of the evening into the overnight. And we're going to see this continued train effect going on through the rest of the evening and the overnight. And again, that's what has our concern the most. Drag this back out. So in terms of the rainfall amounts, and this is just through tomorrow night, tomorrow, with most of this occurring through mid to late morning tomorrow. We're looking at widespread 3 to 4, and that's in the orange colors that you see. And I can highlight that with the color or the pen. These orange colors are 3 to 4, and you can see that all comes all the way down to the I-20, I-85 corridor. The area in darker orange, that's a 4 to 6. Again, we're just talking about through the next 24 to maybe 30 hours or so. The one thing you'll note is this axis that I have highlighted here in yellow. There's some models that actually try to shift that slightly south, down closer to the I-20, I-85 corridor. And that is a concern, obviously, because that would start to include more of the metro. But there are quite a few models as well that have this axis where it is, and that is from Rome to, say, Blairsville as a center with swath on either side of that. So something we'll have to watch as this line starts to set up where the heavier rainfall is. But regardless, we're expecting very significant flooding as a result of that rainfall. So you can kind of see where this axis is setting up. We move on to the next slide. A very rare high risk from WPC for excessive rainfall. And you can see that northern Georgia is now included. Again, it's exceedingly rare that these are issued, and obviously there's a big swath that is incorporated that includes a portion of the northern metro up to about Gainesville, and then across, say, Gilmer County to Dalton, and then out east. And again, slight shift in this depending on where that axis sets up, but the best guess right now is the area in pink, obviously with the greatest threat, and that is through tomorrow morning. Shifting gears into tomorrow after tomorrow morning into Wednesday, we'll see the storm start to lay down a little or slow down a little bit as the threat winds down. But through morning into early afternoon, it will linger, particularly in the northeast and northeastern mountains as the system starts to exit and the storms become less widespread. But still, the threat will linger from overnight tonight into tomorrow. So in terms of the timing, this is one particular high-res local model that we run, and this is starting now going through 1 p.m. tomorrow. And the thing I want you to note, and this is 1 hour time steps, is the continued training of the storms across the region through tomorrow afternoon. This one, you notice the swath is generally speaking north and west of the metro, with not a lot of storms south of the metro, and it doesn't start to shift south until tomorrow afternoon, and we'll see that start to shift south tomorrow afternoon. And with that shift southward, we'll see a slight increase in the severe threat, maybe some damaging wind threat, and that'll primarily be along and south of I-20 as the system starts to shift south. Regardless of the location, the significant flooding is expected to result from wherever this band does set up. I'm going to show you another high-res local model. This is forecast radar starting now and ends Tuesday at 10 a.m. And the thing to note is the repeated training of storms over the same general area. The resultant rainfall from this particular model is up in the upper right-hand corner. And you can see widespread 3 to 4, 4s and 5s, and this is the one model that has the biggest concern for us in the metro, because it extends from, say, northern Carroll County and Haralson back across Cobb and Paulding into northern Fulton and out towards Gwinnett, with that area of yellow, which is 4 to 5 inches of rain. Again, that's in the next 24 hours. So depends on what model you look at, that swath shifts north and south. Some of the models have it up across. Let me draw on the screen so you can see it. This region here, a lot of them are trying to focus up in this general area here. But we're sort of splitting hairs with the models because it can shift easily just 10 to 20 miles south, and you end up with what you're seeing here on the screen. Or this line could actually be further back where we have heavier amounts back where I have it drawn here. And that's sort of the nuances, and that's where our confidence is least, is where exactly that heavy rainfall band sets up. So moving on. In terms of the threat levels, obviously we're in an extreme situation on the rainfall and the flooding with that band setting up. And I mentioned the low end severe threat along and south of I-20 tomorrow with damaging winds on the tail end of this system. But again, the flood threat is going to be the main concern overnight tonight, especially if it sets up across the northern metro region. With this, I'm going to pass it off to Laura, and she's going to talk about the hydro impacts a little bit.
I don't think I have to tell any of you to say that it's wet out there. You already know. We have a lot of places that are still in flood right now with regard to our river. You guys probably were dealing with flooding late last week. If we take a look at what our current conditions are looking like, first I'll start with the right graphic. You can see our soil moisture anomaly. We're very high for this time of year. You can see all those green colors across north and central Georgia. We're already wet. Again, I don't have to tell you that. Our 7-day average stream flow is the image on the left, courtesy of USGS. You can see our river systems are running much above normal. A few of them in northeast Georgia are running high. That's 98 percentile as far as normal conditions for the locations. So again, we're very wet and rivers are already high. Some of them are still in flood. So that's what we're ahead of this event as it continues to evolve. That's what we're dealing with. Now, our highest river threat, again, is going to be centered over North Georgia. For those of you in the Tennessee, Coosa, or Etowah River basins, the Tallapoosa, and then the upper portions of the Chattahoochee, Flint, Ocmulgee, Oconee, and even portions of the Savannah, that's going to be where your greatest river flood threat is. Just because you're outside of this area doesn't mean that you can't see flooding. It's just going to be more widespread and more significant in that outlined box. Some of the rivers, again, remain high from last week, even if they're technically below flood stage. And so these additional rises are just going to push them back up more quickly. Now, for the rest of the state of Georgia, again, you can see that isolated flooding threat still possible, especially in the lower portions of the basins that I already mentioned. Now, we are also dealing with a routed water flooding situation in the Ocmulgee, Oconee, and Altima basins. And so right now, we can't expect that to still maintain itself, even though the heavy rainfall threat is going to be further north. So if we were to look at the forecast river conditions for the next 5 days, the colors you're seeing here are the maximum flood category for the 5-day period. So those colors correspond to either action, minor, moderate, or major, as you see those colors there, ranging from the yellow color all the way up to the purple. Now again, in the portions of East Central Georgia, we are already seeing the moderate flooding, or expecting that moderate flooding over the next 5 days. But again, North Georgia is where we're expected to see some of these newer flooding situations develop in the Metro Atlanta area, and then persistent flooding there in Northwest Georgia. I'll turn it back over to Keith.
Thanks, Laura. All right, I'm going to transition briefly into the rest of the week so you have some awareness. This is the SPC outlook for Wednesday into Thursday. Bottom left is sort of the late night Wednesday radar. We expect a line of storms to move in late Wednesday night into early Thursday. There's a slight risk out for the far northwest and a marginal risk out for much of the area, say from Macon to Gainesville westward. For mainly winds, there could be a tornado or two, but we'll have to assess that risk as we get closer and we get through this first round of storms. But nonetheless, this is with that second system late Wednesday into Thursday. In terms of the rainfall outlook for that, mostly confined to the northwest. This will have to extend a little. They don't do a day 4. That would extend in the rest of the state as that system moves its way across. It ends Thursday morning. That overnight threat really looks like it's going to be Wednesday night into Thursday morning. So this may extend well into our area going into Thursday. Overall, though, the rainfall with this next system, generally 1/2 inch to 1 inch, 1 to 2 maybe across the far north. It will only add to the ongoing problems, but we're not expecting the similar type event that we're about to undergo tonight into tomorrow. But nonetheless, it will still add to the problems. And then with that system, damaging winds, rainfall, and then a slightly lower risk for tornadoes with that system on Wednesday and Thursday. Confidence right now is about in the middle, but again, we'll have to see how this unfolds with time. We're still a couple days away from that. Want to go into the weekend. Obviously, we're not done. The pattern still, we ebb and flow back. We go back to the same pattern that we're kind of in now. Another front comes in on Saturday and lingers into Sunday, early Monday, and we're looking at another widespread 2 to maybe 3 isolated higher amounts of 4 across the northern part of the state. Obviously, that is going to add to the flood threat that we are currently undergoing now. So when all said and done, we're talking widespread 5 to 7, pockets of 7 to 10 across the far north through the 7 days, and that's through next Monday. Just to give you perspective, the normal February monthly rainfall is 4.5, and we're not even including what we got last week in these totals here. So we're talking, in some cases, near double what we get in a month over the next week. And so obviously combine that with what flooding we saw last week, we're going to undergo some significant flooding issues over the next 7 to 10 days for sure. So in summary, again, I can't stress enough, this is a very significant flood threat overnight tonight, wide swath of 3+ inches possible. There is some potential for it to extend south into Atlanta metro, the northern suburbs especially. We'll have to watch that very closely, say from Carrollton to into Cobb County, northern Fulton to Gainesville. If you drew a line on that sector, some of the models are trying to hint that that sector could have a wide swath of 4+ inches of rain overnight tonight. It's most likely to occur starting this evening through the early overnight into the early morning hours. And again, can't stress it enough, it is a nighttime flooding issue. And so obviously urging drivers to be careful driving at night. We're going to try and put out some social media graphics on nighttime driving and flash flooding. Hit the turnaround, don't drown campaign pretty hard. Given what we saw last week with flooded roads, we can expect that or worse, and probably worse actually, based on what we saw last week, given these rainfall totals. And again, the heavy rainfall and the flood threat continues into next week, given the next 2 systems, the Wednesday and then the Saturday system. So updates and briefings, we're going to try, assuming we're not in warning ops, to get an additional email out tonight, a last one, to give you guys an update, latest rainfall forecast for the overnight period especially. Could potentially do another webinar tomorrow afternoon talking about the Wednesday system. We'll have to assess the severe and the flood threat at that point, and staffing as well, because we're putting a lot of effort into tonight, the overnight period. We do plan on transitioning to warning operations this afternoon and evening. We're already seeing the flash flood warnings fly in Alabama and Jackson. They're just starting to work their way east with that heavier rainfall. And so we ask that you utilize chat and social media as much as possible to stay up to date with the latest information. The briefing should be online now. I'm going to post this to YouTube within the hour, and you'll be able to get the recording of this as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and take any questions.